Kings and queens and courtiers and cooks and servants and scullions, they all need to go to the toilet. I'm here to take you on a tour of the 1,000 years of toilet history at historic royal palaces, and we're going to begin here at the Tower of London. We're in the White Tower, built by the Normans quite soon after they invaded England in 1066, and this is a Norman privy or guardrobe. And some people think that it gets its name because the Normans kept their robes. They guarded their robes by keeping them in the privy because the bad smells will kill the fleas. Let's take a look inside. Just a tiny little room set in the thickness of the wall. Here's a really basic wooden seat, and you're sitting over fresh air. The waste goes straight down that hole and falls and is kind of smeared down the wall of the castle. We're halfway up the White Tower now, and this is the outside of that privy shaft we were looking at. So you can see the waste fell straight down here, and it would have made a big dirty streak on the white wall of the White Tower. So that's why they put all the guardrobes on the side away from the city, so that it looks better. Hampton Court Palace. How did the Tudors go to the toilet? It depended on how important you were. If you were one of the lowest servants at court, you'd have used something called the common jakes. That's what they called Hampton Court Palace's famous 28-seater toilet. Sadly, it's gone now, but it was just here in this area of the palace. And this archaeological reconstruction drawing shows how it worked. There were 4 rows of 7 seats. You can see 7 holes for people to sit next to each other. Everybody was in here together. And it also had another name, which I very much like. It was also known as the Great House of Easement. The more important courtiers had rooms of their own, where they could go to the toilet in private. And they probably used piss pots, like this one here. This one was excavated at the palace. It's a real Tudor artefact. And what I like about it, this is great, we had it analysed, and it still contains traces of real Tudor piss. So the king, Henry VIII, he used something called the close stool. This one is quite a lot later, but you get the idea. It's a padded seat placed over the chamber pot, which is in there. We know that Henry had one, which was padded with swan's down. It was decorated with fringes and 2,000 gilt nails. It must have been spectacular. Because Henry VIII's diet was so full of meat, he often had to have an enema for his constipation, what the Tudors called a glister. This picture here shows a 17th century doctor. He's about to administer a glister to this poor lady in the bed, and he's going to use this enormous and horrible-looking syringe. Now, Henry VIII's doctor records that one night the king has his glister, he goes to bed, he gets up in the middle of the night, and his close stool receives a very fair siege. Now we're at Little Kew Palace. This is George III, and it's 1804. We've now entered the age of the flushing toilet at last. In the early 19th century, this little room was the water closet of the Princess Amelia when she lived here at Kew. And she would have used a toilet like this one. It looks like a cabinet, but in fact it's a commode. When I open it up, you can see it's got a pewter bowl here. Here is the flush. So that takes the waste down into this lower chamber, but it's still not plumbed in. So poor Princess Amelia's servants had to open up this lower level, take out the waste and carry it down the stairs. At last we found a plumbed-in toilet. There's a cistern up there, a waste pipe below. We're back at Hampton Court Palace in a Victorian bathroom. I'm sitting on a model that's called the Optimus, and when I get up you'll see how beautifully decorated it is. And that brings us to the end of 1,000 years of lavatorial history. I hope you enjoyed them.